Here's another clever mod, another Harbor Freight bomb. The charger, float charger, was at a very good price of $5.99. Capable of 30 milliamps to 500. Very good for if you're leaving your motorcycle unattended for 2 or 3 months. The thing is, the way these chargers are made are with battery clips. You clip them onto your motorcycle battery. If it's out, that's great. Leave it that way. Merry Christmas. An incredible find, also at Harbor Freight, is a solar power connection cable kit. I don't need this, but what I do need is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these clips. See that? There's 7 of these in this box for $8. That's a big deal, because I believe on eBay you can get 2 of these. I think it's $5 a pair, maybe. Well, the amazingness in this is off of my motorcycle. I ride an ST 1100 avidly. This is hanging off, just waiting for a float charger to go on there. It's not necessary because I probably start my bike on an average of 4 days out of 5 throughout the year. This charger is about to get adapted for having this on the end of it, because I don't want the float charger. I have another float charger that's like this, because this battery is out at the present moment because I am working on my wife's KZ750 for her. And let's get to it. Things you'll need are flux, solder. They go very well together. Something to cut wire with. It can be this, it can be wire strippers. I like these because you can also cut the wire, but what's pretty clever is once I cut the wire, you'll be able to see that later, is it'll strip off the end in about a half an inch is what I'll use, and it'll do that for me. Not all of them kind of think about it. This light tells you that it's charging. This is going to be the first clip I'm going to cut, because I don't need a green light to tell me anything. Not that a voltmeter would be able to tell you. Moving along, I am going to also use shrink tubing. It'll be outside, so after I apply flux solder, I will have these individually on the wire. This is shrink tube. I also have more shrink tubing because I think I'd like to double shrink tube it. My prerogative. That's pretty much it. So explore that. $8 for 7 of those pieces. Very, very handy. Also, you'll read reviews. I do. I like to see really what people, not what they praise about. Oh, this is the best thing ever. It's worked for me every day. I read what really torques people off. They're like, well, it didn't charge my battery. Well, did you make sure it was over 12 volts that it asked you to? Did you go out and visit the thing once in at least 5 years to add distilled water? I used a syringe to top off distilled water. In fact, I brought this up here to show you what it looks like with the lead coming off of it on the motorcycle. You can wire that right up. This is polarity specific. Do not just cut this off and put whatever wire to whatever. If you're uncomfortable with doing that, find a friend who has a voltmeter out every day, because they just can't stand not being without the thing. Where was I? I put 40 cc's. That's 2 syringes. Max will appreciate this. He knows someone who knows syringes. I use 2 full syringes of distilled water to top this off. You cannot leave these unattended. This This float charger is absolutely fine. It puts in the juice that you need, but water does what it's going to do, and it evaporates. So make sure you go back and check with your automatic float charger on. It's not totally automatic. You have to put some water back in because it goes away. Okay, simple. Cut this off. Make it even, because if you don't, after you're done, you'll have one loop sticking up crazy like this and one will be straight. So do the very best you can. It's not going to be a big deal if there's a little bit of extra slack, but as you can see, it's sticking straight across there. Here, I'll tell you what, I'll make it easier for you to see. Alright, quickly now. Cut that across. Even, just like that. I'm leaving a little bit extra because you know what? These aren't going to get thrown away. Why on earth would you do that? They might replace battery clamps some other time. So I've left 3 inches on there and I'll stow them in a bucket. You know, I'll come around and circle around back on that and pick those up. It's got a reasonable amount of copper in there for float charging. This is not going to replace jumper cables, so just keep in mind gauge to amps use. Okay, get my handy dandy wire cutter stripper, place it on there about so, squeeze it about so, reveal wire so. Do the same thing on the other side. Twist them together. There are about 5,000 hours of awesome, completely awesome soldering techniques. I am not going to waste your time doing that today. I am making I almost cut that on the wrong end, so careful what you do while you're talking. Leave yourself some room. I'm cutting this all the way off on the lighted side. I highly doubt this will be good for absolutely anything. It's got a double insulation, so I'm going to try to, within reason, take some of the insulation off first, leaving me some room. So, red to red, black and white. That's positive to positive, negative to negative. Make sure, absolutely positively sure, when you've wired your battery, you can do it how you want. It's yours. You're going to hopefully use the charger specific to the battery. This coming off of the bike is positive in here. Okay? Make this end that goes on to the bike positive on the outside. It's going to mate up into the one that's positive coming off your bike. That's so you don't make sparks going down the road that is other than your rim. If you put this to negative here, you've effectively put a negative charge up inside your bike for a positive. Now these are smart chargers that may not do anything bad, but I really don't want to hear on how, wow, you know, what an impressive amount of smoke that I have having done your project. Well, it's polarity specific. Electricity is most of the time when it's DC. So, alright, back to reality here. Something I like to do, and I'm almost done here, is after I strip this off here, like I said, read another video on awesome solder techniques. I'm not going to bore you to tears with soldering, because honestly it's kind of tough to watch myself, but like I said, there's really good stuff out there. This is what I like to do. Don't forget to place your shrink tubing, otherwise you will get to take off your amazing shrink tube job. And almost forgot, I want to come over all this again with even more shrink tubing. Also available at Harbor Freight. It was $5 for 5 different sizes, like 4 yards each length. It sounds like I'm a Harbor Freight nut. I'm really not, but shrink tubing does one thing: it shrinks. So how inexpensive it is to you is your benefit. And how I'm going to handle this is slip it over both, right? And go past it. You know why? Shrink tubing does not care what source of heat shrinks it. So if you are an avid solder jobber, you will have known this, and you move it well away from your source of heat because it'll shrink it and you can't move it up. So get it well away from your project, best you can. This is what I like to do. I like to put them opposite. I don't like to twist them like you're putting a wire nut on them, because that's not what we're doing today. We're putting shrink tubing over it. So if you make an even X pattern like this, and you twist them over each other, you keep twisting them up like that. What do you know? How cool is that? Now it's pretty much even with the wire. There is no massive buildup like if you twist the wires like this. Don't do that. It's junky. You may have in the past. Now you don't have to do it anymore because there's a much cooler way. You don't have to, you may not even be able to get the shrink tubing over that. So do this, and it'll look much neater. Solder that carefully as to not shrink your tubing. If you do, oh well, melt the solder again and redo it again. Really, where you get good is a certain number of times that you fail. You're not born successful. You have to make that. Sorry about the tangent, but we are messing with electricity here. So, do it right. You'll reap the rewards of making your brand spanking new, freaking awesome adapter for float charging outside on your bike. You're going to need to make something to protect it in the weather, because it'll be out in the elements. So you can make a little box to plug everything into, and this is protected from getting rained on, all the while if your bike's outside. I don't have a garage yet, so oh well. Thanks. Have a blast.